realistic of where you are in the cycle. You know, we've had great teams and great players, and you know, there's a cycle that occurs generally. You know, we've made every effort to have the best teams that we can have, but it's at a sacrifice. You know, we haven't had draft choices because we've lost them when we signed players. We've generally picked, you know, low in the draft, or high, however you want to pronounce it, but and the best way to build a championship club, in my view, is to have good young players coming through the system. And when you go a period of time where you don't have the luxury of early draft choices, you know, it's very difficult. You can't just spend your way into it. So, you know, there's a balance there, and I think we're in a good spot. We've got a good core of young players. We've got more coming. I think if you look at our system, it's as good as we've seen for a while. And you know, it's nice to get that number 5 pick too for the coming year. I was complaining about the system last year when we should have been 5th and we're 7th. Kind of happy with it. Should have been what, 15th maybe, and we're 5th. So, you know, we'll take it.
How do you see that plan? I mean, clearly you're braced for another year, possibly less than $3 million. If spending on payroll has long been tied to selling tickets to fans, how do you close the gap there to get the winning either on the field to bring them back so you can spend more?
We've talked about the fact that payroll has to come down because of these revenue challenges, but you know, that's the financial equation. As far as I'm not quite sure what you're asking in terms of how do you stop it. What we are doing is focusing really hard on the things that are controllable for us right this second. On the baseball side, I'm is hard at work building the player development team. We sat with Flo last night at the writers' dinner. He was talking about the approach to picking so high in the draft. We should have a shoulder pick next year as well. In addition, we might have the top 3 or 4 size pools in the draft, as you know how that goes. It's a money pool that's different depending on where your draft order is. And then on the business side, we're focused on everything that we can control. You know, making changes to the ballpark so that the fan experience remains front and center as a priority. And we've tried for our messaging to be you know, consistent with the reality of where we are. You know, even if we had tried to pull the wool over our fans' eyes, it would have lasted maybe a second. They understand what's going on. They understand the cycles of professional sports, and they understand, I think, where we are in the cycle. You know, you mentioned the word rebuild. I think that's a word that doesn't apply in this case. You know, pick your word, reset, you know, renewal, whatever. But because we have a nice young core of players, I think we have the luxury of, well, I shouldn't say that. We really have to clear the path for playing time for all of them so we know what we have. And when we can properly identify who the guys are that are going to be the foundation for our future success, you know, then we can start adding back with various other ways to supplement what you have internally. But until then, I think our fans know exactly what we're trying to do. And hopefully they're on board with it and they'll hang in there with us.
I think one of the questions that we hear most often is what the next step is after this year, right? The reset. I think people understand that for the most part. And Mo said the other day his hope is that eventually payroll goes back up. When payroll goes back up, does that look like where it's at now? Or is that from here it continues to grow in future seasons?
You know, I think you have to evaluate it year by year to see where we are and where we think we can go. The plan is to play with our young players and get them to develop a base where we can add to that and have high confidence that we'll be competitive. So, you know, the big markets can put money out there every single year. I think the mid markets and smaller markets are not in a position to do that. I think for our revenue, obviously we have great attendance and have had since I've been involved. It's a revenue game, you know. If you have more revenue, you have an opportunity to spend more money. And I think right now we're in actually a pretty good position because we have a core of young players. Not like we're starting from scratch. And it's helpful to build on that with the draft choices that we have. You know, we've sacrificed draft choices in the past to have a team of the present at that time. And, you know, that sort of played itself out. We weren't in a position to keep doing that.
And Bill, with manager Oliver Marmol, what has impressed you and impresses you, it makes you think why he's the guy to go forward?
Well, you know, he came up in the Cardinals system. He's sort of a classic, whatever generation that is from, you know, how Kissel built that. And, you know, he understands the Cardinal philosophy, and I think he's done a very good job.
Mr. DeWitt, we've talked about the cycles of baseball. This is, for the first time in your nearly 30-year tenure, a time where fan frustration about the team has been pretty vocal, and maybe even out. How do you balance that with the decision-making of this needed direction in terms of the reset or the retool, and how difficult of a decision is that to make when you are obviously very receptive to how fans feel about this organization?
I think, you know, we do what we think is best for the team, current and future, and obviously fans have their own opinion, and you know, we've got wonderful fans and they're knowledgeable. So I think the great majority of them understand what we're doing. Others and approve it, others don't. You know, they think we should maybe go spend money and see if we can't get it back that way. But it's hard to do. I mean, even if you had that goal, that would be hard to do. You have big markets that are just going to do what they do, and we're not in a position to compete at that kind of level of payroll. So, you know, we've always overachieved our market in terms of payroll. We've been in the top 10, you know, right around that level, at the lower part of the top third, I should say, top 10 teams. And, you know, there's a time to do it and a time to build. And, you know, we're trying to, I think, balance that so that we have the opportunity to have competitive teams every year.
On the team side of things,
Pardon?
on the team side of things are constantly changing, but also on the business side of things, to continue to engage with your fans and to continue to get them excited. It's constantly evolving around ballparks around the country. How do you want to see the Cardinals fit into that and kind of coupling, of course, with the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of innovation occurring throughout the league. We try to keep our eye on what's going on there. We have a number of initiatives that are organizationally oriented to realign some of our staff. You know, whether it's the sales function or the operational function or the game day entertainment function or you name it. You know, there's talk of, you know, how can we better identify our customers in this era of advanced technology and AI, and provide perhaps a more unique and customized entertainment experience for them. And there's a lot of brainstorming going on. It's actually an exciting time actually to be in the front office, because there are these new tools out there that we're trying to figure out the best way to use. You guys know Nook, who's in the room over here, came from Toronto and brings a fresh perspective on the business side, and that's been great. Heim's doing that on the baseball side. As I said in the open session just a little bit ago at the Ballpark Village Winter Warm-Up, Heim's very well calibrated to what teams are doing out there, and to sort of how an elite player development system looks. And sometimes you can get that and grow internally and be that leader. Sometimes you need an outside voice to identify those areas that'll help you get there. And I think we've got that on both the business and the baseball side right now, which is exciting.
There are teams that rebuild and it works, but it doesn't always work. Do you see this as a risk at all, that rebuilding, I know you don't like the word rebuilding, but it's difficult at times. You look up in May and the record's not what you like, or the attendance is not what you like. Do you see this as a risk of taking this approach?
I mean, it's a risk business, so no matter which way you go, there's always risk. I mean, players may or may not perform as you hope they would. There may be injuries. There's no magic wand or magic strategy to ensure success. We talk about, well, the Cardinals are at a point where they're rebuilding. I mean, we did win 83 games last year. It wasn't like, obviously the year before that was a big disappointment. But as you might recall, we won 83 games one other time that worked out pretty well. So, having as many winning seasons as we've had over the years, I think is a pretty good record. And our goal is to keep doing that. And I think we have the opportunity to do that this year and into the future.
Bill Mo's been very upfront with us throughout the winter that he is attempting to trade Nolan Arenado, and the reason for that is because he feels the need to decrease payroll. If that's not able to happen, whether through no trade clauses or not matching up on value or anything else, do you see a need to make further cuts? If it's not Nolan, will you need to find other places on the roster to trim back?
No, I don't think so. I think, Nolan, there are two things there. One is, we would prefer to go with younger players, and Nolan himself, if he can find the right opportunity, I think would prefer to play with a team that, on paper at least, or, in whatever view it is, got a top chance of being a World Series champion. So, but having said that, that's not so easy to find. The team that you have that much confidence in going to, and he likes it here. I mean, it's not like he's begging to leave. But I think it would be good for him if he could find one of those teams that everybody thinks has the best chance of, a top chance of winning a championship this year. And he's Hall of Fame type player, so we're happy to have had him, and we'll be happy in the future if he stays.
You both have spoken of the resources and draft capital and young talent that you guys are trying to showcase this coming season. How does that sort of fit into maybe what the timeline of a reset ultimately looks like when it comes to payroll, and where you're hopeful to be able to kind of build back in a future year, whatever that may look like?
Hard to say, kind of year to year where payroll might go, and how these young players play out, and what we need to get to where we want to go. So, it's sort of year to year looking at where we are and what's the best way to succeed in the future. So it's kind of hard to say what, the strategy would be next year, as an example. I think we've got the right strategy for the franchise this year, and then we'll see how it plays out.
Does clarity on maybe the television revenue side play into that? Because obviously when you guys spoke at the end of the season, there wasn't even a known for the upcoming year. Now that's a little bit more certain. Does that play in at all as to how you can look to the next year, 2 years down the road?
I think all the revenue factors are, you know, part of the decision making that we do. But I feel confident that if we have the kind of progression with our team, the fans will come in full force, and hopefully the TV thing settles down and we know what we have there.
At this point, what is your level of confidence in that TV deal, not just for this year, but for the foreseeable future being in place the way that it is currently?
Yeah, I'll take that. So, as you guys know, we stayed with FanDuel Sports Network. And the big kind of unknown that we're really interested in seeing is what sort of subscription numbers we will get from the direct-to-consumer product. You're seeing it out there for the Blues, you know, sign up for a direct stream for whatever a month. And that's what we're jumping into as well, so that every fan in our area has access to our games. Unfortunately, over the last number of years, a lot of fans, through no fault of their own, have not had access to our games. Now everybody has access. So what does that look like for us? That's a big unknown that we're really anxious to see. It's already debuted in a number of markets, and some better than others, as you would expect. And I feel like for Cardinals fans, our market in particular, if you draw a circle around the entire thing, we have a pretty small geographic core market, meaning where we're the exclusive, we have exclusive rights for Cardinal fans. And then we have a really large outer market where we share territory with other teams. You know, like as you go north into Illinois, we'll have Cubs, Cardinals, shared territory as an example. Same thing going west with Kansas City. Same thing going east with the Reds or whoever. And even west towards Texas. In those areas, a lot of people haven't been able to get the games, and we think there are a lot of Cardinals fans out there. And so we're going to be promoting that product and hopefully having it be a big part of really Cardinal Nation experiencing our games every day.
As you go into this reset, I wonder, is there any part of you that looks back and thinks that you chased too long or you waited too long to sort of hit the reset button that you've now done?
Whether we're second guessing ourselves for waiting to do it, is that what you're asking?
If you felt like at all you invested in free agents and sort of, like you said, sacrificed draft picks, and you waited too long to get back to that draft and develop model.
I don't think so. I think, you know, we had pretty good success along the way. Didn't play out necessarily to the ultimate goal, but, you know, we've had winning seasons, made the playoffs, you know, pretty good percentage of the time. But, you know, I think we picked the right time to do it. Some of the, you know, a couple of our key players, obviously Goldie and Arenado were great players and potential Hall of Famers, and you know, it just felt like now was the time to move forward with the group of young players that we currently do have, and you know, try to get those draft choices that we've sacrificed over the years. I mean, we've been at a real disadvantage on extra picks, which small market teams have, and also when we've signed free agents, we've lost picks there. So it's been hard to build from within when you don't have good draft picks and you lose some of the ones that you do have.
Bill, amid this, sorry, amid this reset, there's been a kind of bolstering of the staff down at the minor league level, coordinator position, and just coaching. Is that kind of the extent of what your fans should expect with the overhaul, or do you see more investment with the farm system, whether that be with staff or technology?
I didn't catch all of that, but.
Is it just staffing, or is there other stuff involved in the player development?
No, it's more than staffing. I think it's, instruction,
Technology?
technology, the whole 9 yards.
I mean, if you look at our Jupiter complex, that's a big investment. And, fans don't see the P&L of that, but, I mean, it's a huge project. You guys will see it. I mean, this year, not as much. It's just starting. We're trying to do some things around the edges to get ready because we have a quick turnaround. As soon as spring training's over this year, they go hard, literally like April 1st. And try to be ready for the following spring training. And as part of that, not only is it a better and bigger weight room and group meeting rooms and kitchen space, but it's technology for the players, both on the hitting and the pitching side, to be at the cutting edge of that stuff. So, and that coincides with the new hires in terms of their goals and what they want to see out of the player development system.
Just as an aside, my father, who's obviously in the baseball business, had a card on his test, a quote from Branch Rickey: "Get the players and the rest will take care of itself." That's kind of where we were. In today's world, you would say, get the ball players and develop them, and the rest will take care of itself. Over the last number of years, the investment in developing has really expanded dramatically. So, to be honest, we were a little behind in that regard, and we fixed it, and I think it'll pay off for us.
One or two more here, and then we'll wrap it up. We're going about 30 minutes, so thank you.
How have ticket sales tracked as compared to prior years for this coming season? And also, have you locked down potentially what the monthly cost might be for a direct-to-consumer service?
Ticket sales are, still a little bit TBD. We've just passed that deadline for season holders to renew, but we always give them a grace period, so we're getting in the stragglers. And I think really our core group is coming back, which is great. We think that if the team plays decent, we're better. We will be able to sort of overachieve some of the budget numbers, but the other thing we're trying to do is really work with our partners in trying to sort of clean up the secondary market a little bit. And that has a little bit to do with understanding who kind of those resellers are out there, working with them, and trying to make sure that there isn't like a surplus of tickets on the secondary. We saw that last year. So we're going to clean that up, and that's going to, I think, really bode well for season ticket holders as they think about the reality is a lot of times they'll go to a fraction of the games and lay off the extras on the secondary. And we want to make sure that that's a healthy marketplace. And so we've taken some steps in that regard. And what was the second half of your question?
If you could lock down a price for the direct-to-consumer streaming service, like monthly price or a yearly price?
I don't think have it locked, but I think we're talking about somewhere around 20 a month, aren't we? Yeah, that's sort of the ballpark. It could be a little higher or a little lower, but that's been the pattern out there with other teams as well. I don't think anyone's too far from that, unless you see like a couple markets where you got multiple teams as part of the same package. But that's probably the range, close to the range of where we're going to be.
Y'all have talked a lot about the cycles of baseball, and it's been something you've been able to stave off for more than 20 years. The downturn that some of your peers have had, even like the Red Sox and some of the Dodgers, but you've done that by taking the core group that you developed but adding in trade pieces like Paul Goldschmidt or Matt Holliday, or when Albert leaves, you go to the free agent market, get Carlos Beltran. With the rising cost of free agents and the rising cost of extensions, y'all haven't reached those limits. You've been one of the 5 teams still at the lower end when it comes to the highest contract you get out. Is what you're describing a new reality for the Cardinals, that you don't expect to be able to stave off the cycles, the downturns over the next decade or for multiple decades like you have?
Well, I think if the current process plays out as we hope and expect that it will, if you're talking about payroll as an example, we'll be back, doing what we did before. And I think, we have every opportunity to be top team into the future. So I'm really concerned about that.
So it's more of a return to kind of how you create continuity of success,
Right.
as opposed to now you live in the cycles, that these other, the sine waves, so to speak.
I mean, look, the goal is to, have those down cycles be few and far between. And I think the way to build a sustained competitive window is to have good, young, improving, cost-controlled players that you can supplement, where the system falls off, you add with trade or whatever. And that usually, if you just look at sort of averages throughout the league, competitive windows for middle to upper middle market teams can last quite a long time. I would think for us, to be able to go on a run like we just did the last 20 years. But whether that can happen or not is unknown. That's why we watch the games. Nothing is for sure, no guarantees, but that's what we're trying to build again.
All right, well, Bill, again, we thank you